But it beeped.
Yeah, it's all good.
Did a thing.
It did beep. I heard it.
It's lying to me over here.
So,
I have very little faith in technology. I
As-
don't know if we've gone over this before.
as was expected, we had some mild technical difficulties, but god damn it, we're trying again.
It wouldn't be the start of a brand new season of White Belts in Life.
Without some more than mild technical difficulties.
At least we still have this episode.
We do, yeah.
At least we're getting ahead of it.
We, actually, you know what's funny? I'm pretty sure that I actually have an episode in the tank, so to speak, too. I don't know if I ever actually published, because I was on our YouTube page, so you have that YouTube analytics page.
Yeah.
And I was on there, and I have an episode uploaded, but I'm pretty sure I never actually hit publish.
Nice.
So I think we actually have an episode, like, quote-unquote, in the tank. It didn't have any views, which doesn't make any sense, because I would have viewed it at least.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
That sounds. I feel like I vaguely remember there being an episode that we recorded and never seeing an upload.
Yeah, I think that probably is true. So we have one in the tank. So if we both come down with the coronavirus one of these weeks, we can still have an episode released.
Exactly.
But
that's an interesting case, right? Like the more you look into the whole coronavirus story, I'm not like full blown conspiracy side of things, but like that city Wuhan, like apparently they have like a biological weapons testing facility there.
I really haven't been. I'm still kind of on my no news kick. So I really don't know much about it. The only thing that I had read in a critical sense about the coronavirus is that it really doesn't seem to be having an effect on healthy people.
Yeah,
it
really
is just the elderly and children,
Yeah,
which is terrible. I'm not saying that that's acceptable, but
it's an important thing. Well, because the media does tend to hype up this sort of hysteria around any kind of virus like this. Like
fake news.
Coronavirus, like this is not some kind of new virus. It's just a type of virus. The coronavirus strains have existed for years. Like this is not anything new in that regard. It's just a specific type of coronavirus.
Well, it's like bird flu and swine flu are effectively the same thing, just like a mutation of one of the other.
It's
right?
the flu. Like it's not. But in a place like China, like they're like the leading producer of greenhouse gases in the world.
Yeah.
So like they're literally, the people of China are immunocompromised is the term. Like their immune systems are shot to hell just because they have to absorb so much more in their atmosphere. So like, yeah, people are going to get sick a lot easier. And their healthcare system is, that's communist
Socialist.
China. So you're not getting the utmost best in care. So yeah, they're going to get hit pretty hard with it. And then if it travels the world, like if your immune system isn't up to snuff with everything else that's going around, like if you tend to get sick, you're probably at risk for coronavirus. If you don't tend to get sick, then you're probably not going to get coronavirus. But either way, we're not all going to die.
Yeah, it's made to be almost like this bubonic plague, the most recent rendition of. I said rendition in the failed intro of this episode as well. Must be in my head this morning, yeah. But I don't know, man. It's one of those things too where it's timed. So although if you really want to get conspiratorial about it, it came out right when it looks like the one thing Trump was able to sort of cling to was that the stock market has just been exploding under his watch in a good way.
Yeah.
And good God, as an owner of a Roth IRA, the past 2 weeks have been very depressing. I'm pretty sure my tiny little, my tiny little Roth IRA that only started like a year and a half ago, not even, I think it was like only maybe 10 months ago, was up some ridiculous percentage since I had made it. And it's very just like typically invested. It's not like I'm not trying to beat the markets or anything. It's just a lot of index funds. But it had been up like 16% since I had made it. And that was, I think, 2 weeks ago when I checked that. It had been up 16% since its creation. As of yesterday, it was down 5%.
Yeah.
So I went from up 16 to down 5 in about 10 days, 15, no more than 15 days. So
yeah,
you want to get conspiratorial? I don't know. Maybe we should call it the Bernie virus.
It was slowly kind of trickling that way, like the coronavirus. They first started reporting on it, I think, like beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Like just little outbreaks, like the initial wave of things in China.
Did it come from like a pig or something? Like a boar that somebody ate, or
maybe like I said, there part of the conspiracy aspect is that there is like some kind of like biological testing facility in the city of Wuhan.
Oh, gotcha.
So like it's believed there was like a breach of containment.
Contagion.
And that's how this like got out.
How many bad tweets were fired off by comedians like, pretty sure I had the coronavirus a few summers ago down in Palm Beach?
You don't even need to be a comedian for those jokes anymore. I remember seeing a meme that was just like that super like dated impact font style meme. It's just like a guy on a grill, like a Far Side comic looking guy.
Yeah.
It's just like, wake me when there's a Bud Light virus.
Yeah. It's I don't know, man. It's really a strange time to be avoiding the news like I do. And we've had that debate on this show, but in that, like, I completely understand that to some degree it's my responsibility to be an informed citizen, and by boycotting the news, I'm not as informed as I should be from all these current events. But
to some extent.
But you know what? It's hard to avoid. It shows you just how almost overbearing the news can be in this country, because I have truly been treating it almost as if it were a contagious disease. Like anytime I'm exposed to an article, I'm like, huh, get it away, get it off my phone. And yet I still am fairly abreast of all the most recent goings on and the topics du jour. I know seems like presidentially Bernie is kind of the guy who is getting some steam. Did you see some guy caught him in first class?
No, I didn't see that.
I did see that. That made it across my I have to check social media. Being in real estate now, I have there's a Facebook group that you use to get open houses. And as a new real estate agent, doing open houses is something that you probably want to do a lot, especially in a city.
Yeah, it's kind of important.
If you lived in like Paducah, Kentucky, I don't think doing a bunch of open houses is probably going to generate you much business. But being in Center City,
you're selling a lot of land out there.
Yeah, I don't think you're selling much of anything in general, but land is probably high on the small list. But so I have to go on Facebook once a week, inevitably. So I always see a few things there, and I saw that Bernie, somebody caught him in first class, and apparently that's a thing he brags about, is that he's like, one of us, and he doesn't take first class because he's not one of the billionaires. And someone caught him, he's like, all like, got his hat down, he's like pulled it down, you can see him like peeking at the camera out of the corner of his eye.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it just sucks that it seems like we're fighting extremism with extremism, man.
That was inevitable.
Yeah.
I have a theory, like where the direction this country is headed, and also just the attention span of the average person in this day and age. When you talk about social media and you talk about like public opinion changing on a dime just because this tweet with this video goes viral in the span of a couple hours. Like, I really feel like we're hitting a point where, one, the most polarizing candidates will always win. Two, we are never going to have a two-term president again. I think it's just going to be a series of single-term, get him out, he's doing too much, this is insane, this is ridiculous.
Are you so sure we're not going to have a two-term president in 2020?
We'll see, but I have a feeling like that we're getting to a point where there's just no room for consistency. Well, there's just always going to be every 4 years there's just going to be this complete turnaround and upheaval, and everything will be thrown to the wind, and then somebody else will come along and take all those ashes and throw them around a little bit more. It's just going to be a mess, and things will get more and more difficult to follow.
I don't know when gridlock became this disgusting thing. Like that's what separates us from fascism. Like gridlock is a good thing in a legislatively in a democratic society. Like that's what prevents us from Trump gets elected, now it's all the Trump policies. Like I feel like when we were growing up, we were constantly bashed with news stories talking about how the impossible gridlock was in Washington was disgusting, and part of that is baked into the cake. Like that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah.
And I just don't know when exactly that became such a negative, connotation politically, but anyways,
it depends on
what
you're dealing with.
We've exhausted my politics knowledge, so we better change topics soon.
Yeah, that happens.
How's the Since we've last checked in, since we've last recorded, how's the stand-up going?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I know I don't know if this had happened by the time we recorded last, but I recently started running an open mic.
I think that was mentioned in one of our. That might be in the forgotten episode. So yeah, that might be
possible.
fresh news.
Yeah. But so I started running an open mic here in Philly, over at Frankie Bradley's, right there in Center City. It's on Tuesday nights, which is a super busy night for open mics, actually.
Yeah, seems like earlier in the week is typically a good open mic night when people's zest for life is really high still.
Yeah.
It's like going to the gym. Monday and Tuesday, gym's packed. Wednesday, they slowly fall off after then. And next week becomes the week that they're going to make all those changes in their life.
Yeah. Well, it's also like because as it gets later in the week, you have less people who want to go out for open mics and more people who are looking for actual shows.
Or just people they're like, okay, I don't want to listen to comedy. I actually just want to go to the bar and get fucked up.
That too. I mean, you had their comedians are desperate enough. Like if you do an open mic on a Friday or Saturday, they'll go just as to whether or not there's going to be an audience, A, and B, that audience actually wants to hear jokes and doesn't want to just drink at the bar.
Yeah,
that's up for debate. Like I did a free show on Friday night here in Philly. Which was a fun show, but the thing with the free show is that you're playing a gamble of are these people here for the show, or are these people just here because they were in the bar and somebody said, hey, we're starting a show in 10 minutes. During that course of the show, there was I wound up headlining that night, and there was I say headlining, but it's really more closing.
Yeah, you were the last guy to go up.
Yeah, I was the last one, but I got to do a little bit more time, so that was fun. But there was a completely different audience in the room by the time I went on stage than when the show started. And they were a fun audience, don't get me wrong, but you're rolling the dice every time you do that.
Yeah, that seems pretty. We've said it before on the show, so I don't want to go over it in its entirety again, but my biggest thing with comedy is I feel like comedy in a weird way needs I'm trying to articulate this because I feel like there's not an actual way. Like back in the day before the internet, right? To some degree, comedy is about selling tickets.
Yes.
And comedy is a very flexible art form. Like you could, like Steve-O was selling out comedy shows, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't doing comedy. He was just telling stories about, the dumb shit that he did.
I mean, he's probably running it by a few comics and trying to punch things up. I guarantee you he's got a writer or two.
Yeah, or even there's somebody who's making the rounds recently, too, who's like
Brendan Schaub.
Yeah, well. But yeah, I mean, a perfect example would be him when they used to just do The Fighter and the Kid live. He would come out and do stand-up, but it originally didn't start off as him doing stand-up. It was just basically like him introing the show. But that whole thing was a comedy show, even though it was largely just like a Q&A. But anyways, comedy is basically, I'm pretty sure Helium will allow anything to be categorized as comedy if they would sell the house out.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, it's just what it is. Like comedy shows, they're the alternative entertainment option, and that's a big category. And I think back in the day, like when you hear Rogan talk about stories of coming up in Boston with all the guys that he came up with, it seemed like there was a legitimate sort of ladder to climb in some way, shape, or form. Like if you got passed at this show, then you could also do this show, and it seemed like there was sort of some sort of organization to actually making it. Whereas now, so much of it is just about, influence. Yeah. I hate to see that fucking word, but
in a way, it's always been that too.
Yeah, we just see an actual metric we can track now.
Yeah, there's different now there, and we may have touched on this before in regards to the whole cancel culture thing in comedy. It's now it's easier to do comedy now than it's ever been because now you can be a Brendan Schaub or a Steve-O and headline shows.
Yeah.
You can be somebody who didn't necessarily start out at open mics or be somebody who wasn't really a stand-up initially, but you have enough of a following and you can use that to bring to a club and say, hey, I guarantee you I'm going to sell 200 tickets if you book me.
Yeah, or like I'm trying to think of a perfect like Schaub, for example. A lot of name recognition, right? Who's a guy who's like a really good, solid comedian? Maybe not a headliner, but like close to a headliner. What the hell's his name? Full Charge. The guy who calls himself the Full Charge.
Who?
Matt Fulcheron or something. You ever heard of him?
I have no idea who that is. But,
Okay, well,
but that's a good example.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
use, I guess.
So he's been on Rogan. He's been on all the big shows. He's been on like Ari's show. He's been on Joey Diaz's show a bunch. Like he's a well-known L.A., New York comedian.
Okay.
If he goes to Helium, like this is a dude who has been doing clubs for probably well over a decade.
Yeah.
I saw him live open up for Burt Kreischer at the DC Improv.
Okay.
But that motherfucker ain't selling. Like, I don't know. Maybe he is. So no offense to Matt Fulcheron. I actually think he's really funny. That's why I bring him up. That's why I thought of you. He didn't.
I didn't even know who you were.
But you know, he's a guy who, if you see him on the marquee at Helium, I don't know if he's pushing tickets, but he's a legitimately skilled stand-up comedian.
Yes.
You put Brendan Schaub up there and like, oh, the fucking UFC guy.
Yeah. But that's something that's been around since like you still to this day. Maybe not at Helium, but at your comedy cabarets and your chuckle huts and all those clubs, they will have a handful of guys who are just leftovers from the comedy boom who took that route, who took that, I'm going to work at as many clubs as I can, as often as I can, and this is where I live now, so this is where I'm going to get up all the time.
Fucking Sudsy.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of guys like that.
I should have used him as my example because he would have got it.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a little bit more clout with Matt Fulcheron.
Isn't he like a math teacher or something, Sudsy?
I'm not sure what Sudsy does in real life. He's not Sudsy. I know that, but
before, like, did he create that character before? But it's different though. Like, I compare him to Larry the Cable Guy, but he's really not at all that. Like, he's a special kind. He's basically like a Kenzo.
Yeah, that's the angle he's going with it.
Yeah, he has a good, like, you know, every now and again, like, a comedian will have, like, a recurring bit that he'll go back to, especially if he's in character. Well, Larry the Cable Guy, get her done, right? He'll, like, if he's lost on stage, he'll just go back to that and get a couple cheap laughs and claps. Sudsy has a great one. He would always ask, like, someone really obviously, like, not in this demographic if they had weed. Like, he'd find, like, the grandma is like, yeah, you got any weed?
I love that. Like, for me, Sudsy is a guy who I just used to see at the club when I would work weekends from time to time, or he'd, like, stop into the open mic every couple of months.
Yeah.
And for you, he's like a hometown hero. He would come through every summer. We'd all gather around and go out.
My dad used to help to run this restaurant thing. I shouldn't say restaurant thing. It was, in fact, a restaurant. Although, I must say that it is very confusing here in the States that we do not differentiate clubs, bars, restaurants, and the like. I was talking to a client of mine, a training client from the UK, and he was talking about how much he prefers that. Like, he's like, in Britain, it's the pub, it's the club, and it's the restaurant. We don't blend them. It's very confusing. Like, I can't tell you how often I would go to, like, a bar restaurant, and you're like, how do I get service?
Yeah.
Like, do I get seated? Do I go to the bar? Like, what the fuck is going on here? I was at Revolution House in Old City, and, like, there's no seating. Like, there's no hostess. It's just a bar. So you just walk in. And I'm like, all right, well, how do I order stuff? Like, I could get a drink at the bar. Then you go to the bar, and they're like, oh, well, we don't do food. Like, well, who does? Who can I talk to get food? I don't want alcohol. I want food. And finally, they're like, "Oh, let me go get the waitress." And 20 minutes later, I was like, "This is how you order food here. This is the process."
Well, that's more of a reflection on Revolution House than the business model, I think.
Yeah.
But it's a valid
Salty.
point. It's weird. Like, every place wants to be this, like, Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Of service.
Yeah.
Like that I think that's more that's what America is just trying to, like, how many things can we jam into this one place, cuz real estate is real fucking expensive.
I'm trying to, you goddamn right. I'm trying to do less. That is a fundamental, man, I've grappled with this. One of the main things I've struggled with as I really start to, like, understand myself a little bit more over these past few years is I have this weird discrepancy within me that all of my heroes are specialists, yet I am a generalist.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who really has had trouble paring down what it is that I want to pursue in my life. And recently I had this idea. I was talking to Derek, shout out one of our coworkers, and I was telling him I want to start taking piano lessons. He's like, oh, so you're the guy who takes piano and guitar lessons. You do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. Oh, you're also into podcasting. You do a little bit of stand-up comedy. And you also just got your real estate license. That's your thing? And I was just like, yeah, okay, point taken.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with that. I definitely can say with honesty that I've been less successful. I am less good at all of those things because I do too many of them. But at the same time, that's one of the things that I really like about myself.
Yeah.
Is that I have my toe dipped in all of these different pools. So it's kind of a difficult
it's
debate.
important. It's important to have versatility.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to become so inundated with little bits of like there's that whole jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one.
Ooh.
Is the full expression.
I had never heard the end of that expression.
Yeah, there's a rhyme and everything.
Okay, that's the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's like because we've been talking about trying to get a Dungeons and Dragons game together.
Yeah,
and you can dual class. That's an option that you have, or multi-classing in Dungeons and Dragons. You can be like a fighter mage or a fighter thief, or combine things like that.
What about a warlock?
You could, you can be like a warlock paladin or whatever. Like
Ooh.
But the thing is that if you decide to branch out into another class, you have to start at the bottom of that class that you branch out in.
I see.
You're not going to be as good at one as you are at the other.
That makes sense.
And that's an important thing to like. You have, it's a very good metaphor for life and like your skill point allocation.
Yeah,
it's like
can.
You can be, if you want to be a specialist, you can be a specialist, but you have to devote everything into that specialty. You have to do away with anything that takes away from it.
Yeah.
So you are making a sacrifice in that. Like if you want to be an MMA fighter, you're probably not also going to be a concert pianist.
Probably not.
It's not in the cards for you. You get to a certain level in fighting, you can start taking some piano lessons.
Yeah.
But just don't hold that.
You're not winning the belt anymore.
Yeah.
Like that probably, or maybe you could probably squeeze two things in.
Yes.
I feel like that's probably doable. You can be truly world-class elite at probably two things. But I guess that's the trade-off, right? Like, are you comfortable with not, like, what's the step down from world-class elite?
Yeah.
Like, just really, really fucking good? Now, do you double that then? Can you be really, really fucking good at, like, four things? Because I'd probably rather be that than world-class at two.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
think
I'm with you on that. Like the dual classing is my shit. I always there's nothing better than being able to wield a broadsword and shoot magic missile with the other hand.
Metaphorically, of course.
Yes, but also literally, if I could do that, that'd be pretty fucking dope.
That would be pretty dope. I feel like one of the other things I've been one of the points of recently I discovered I've been thinking a lot about dysfunctional relationships, and we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but it's possible we didn't get that, so we're going to talk about it again. When you look at, I've been examining all the different things in my life. Like everything in your life is a relationship. You and I have a relationship. You have a relationship with your girlfriend. You have a relationship with your job. You have a relationship with comedy. It's all these different relationships. And for the first time, I had this like epiphany of that. I had a relationship with like time and productivity, in addition to work. And man, time is a motherfucker. Like when you really break down your ability to manage time, first of all, that's probably the number one point that's going to dictate your success.
Yes.
Because especially when you really start to think of like, okay, like I was listening to a podcast with Penn Jillette, who's one of my favorite people. Do you know who Penn Jillette is?
Yes, I used to follow his YouTube channel for a bit.
I love Penn Jillette. He's one of my favorite. He's so articulate when he speaks, and he knows himself really fucking well.
Yeah.
And he knows himself to the point where he will like acknowledge that he doesn't like something about himself, but at the same time, but it's just the fucking way I am. And he was talking about his one of the grand ironies is he has absolutely no visual memory at all. Nothing. And to prove the point, like his family was always aware of this growing up. So to prove the point, his mother got in the autograph line for him after one of his shows. And his mom gets to the front of the line. He smiles, hugs her, takes a picture with her, signs an autograph, and sends her on her way. Having didn't fucking occur to him in 1 second that it was his own mother that he had just done this for. Now, obviously, no, just he doesn't, whatever the synapse is that connects seeing something to remembering something, his is rusty and shitty. Like, it just doesn't function all that well.
You sure that was his mom and not just Teller, and this was just another trick?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's like, if he doesn't have visual memory, how does he do magic?
Well, here's the thing, though. He was talking about how he has a really advanced skill for the written word in terms of memory.
Okay.
Like, he can really remember something quite in detail. It's not to say that he does not have a good memory, but he just doesn't, those memories aren't jarred to life by seeing something.
Gotcha.
But if he reads something, he can recall everything. Immediately, it'll come back to him. The wall was here. It was painted this color. The chair was there. It was leather. And it'll all come back to him, but he needs to read it. He can't just see it.
Gotcha.
And it's almost like he describes it almost like a form of, laziness. Or I don't know if he said this directly, but it's just kind of like laziness on his part. Like, when he's signing autographs after the show, he's not thinking, oh, there's my mother. There's not, he was just in, robot mode.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, listening to him say that really kind of made me try to look at what I'm really bad at. And you may or not. I'm intrigued to see how quickly you agree with this. But the one thing that I truly am just despicably bad at is managing overwhelm. Like, I am super, super easy to overwhelm.
Yeah. I mean, I sympathize because I am also, but yeah.
It's a motherfucker, man. And it's really difficult because oftentimes when you're overwhelmed, it's because this list of tasks seems insurmountable.
Yes.
Right? You're like, I have this incredibly long list of tasks, and I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to get started. And you kind of wish that you could just get everything down to a checklist. Like, if it were only just a checklist, I would be able to be productive.
Yeah.
Like, even if just, like do your emails. Okay, step 1, turn on your computer. Step 2, open up Gmail. Like, if there was a world where we could just take this mental list of tasks we have to do and just automatically convert it into a checklist, that's what people like you and I who struggle with overwhelm would love. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's just organizing and a big thing for me has been how to organize information that's coming into my life.
Yeah.
Like email. I have to have an empty email inbox. I have to do it. Like, it's the only way things will get done. I could not do it, but then my productivity will decrease to a point where it's going to stress me even more, which is only going to serve to contribute to the overall feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah.
And when you start to think about time management, because in a large part, that's going to sort of be the silver bullet that cuts through the overwhelm. And when you really start analyzing your tasks, man, that is a motherfucker too. When you start thinking about all right, if even from a work perspective, like if what you're doing for work is something that you're doing simply for the money, not that something you're super passionate about, or I think we're all to some degree. If you're good at what you do, you are passionate about it to some degree. But at the end of the day, at least at this stage of our lives, we're doing what we do for money. And when you think about what tasks are actually making me the most money versus what tasks are stressing me out the most, it's usually the tasks that are insignificant that are the ones stressing you out the most. But also, sometimes those insignificant tasks are much more easy to complete. Yeah. So your day just becomes you completing the irrelevant tasks and never actually getting to the one or two things that really fucking need to be done.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes there is one thing. There is one thing. There's actually a book, and I read it recently, so you have to forgive me for spilling their Kool-Aid. But
I'm not the one who's got to forgive you. It's whoever wrote that book.
Yeah, it's
you are cutting through the shit right now.
There is a book. I'm not gonna be honest with you. I listened to a podcast about it. I didn't actually read the whole thing. I can't do audiobooks. But anyways, it's called The One Thing, and it's basically the book. It boils down to a question, and the question is, what is the one thing that, such by doing it, all other things become irrelevant or easier to do? And anytime you're overwhelmed, ask yourself that question. And usually there's an answer. Or there's a bunch of answers, and you have to figure out what is the one thing. And usually that's what you should be thinking about. That's the thing that should be occupying your thought space. What is the one thing right now that such by doing it, blah, 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 blah. It's not just organizing tasks or making a fucking checklist.
Yeah.
Or making a to-do list. A checklist and to-do list are very different things. But just making that to-do list is sometimes poisonous for people who may struggle with overwhelm, because what do you put at the top of the checklist first? Things that are typically or let's not even say you put it at the top of the checklist, but what are the things that get done on that checklist first? The things that are easy to do, which typically are irrelevant. Do laundry. Okay, that's probably what you're going to do first because it's low stress and it's in your control and all these things. Is that really what you need to be doing right now? Is that why you're stressed? Because you're fucking laundry? Probably not.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's a motherfucker, man. Time management is a motherfucker, and it kind of has been there's a weird connection between this like jack of all trades, master of none, because if you decide that you want to have all these varied interests, you got to build them into the calendar somehow.
Yes.
Which is going to require you to manage your time. And
yes.
I could go back and kick myself for not doing some of this stuff earlier, because it's like compound interest invested in the stock market, right? Imagine if I had just started taking guitar lessons once a week 4 years ago and had stayed consistent with it.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't practice that much outside of it, like I would probably be 50 times better at the guitar than I currently am. But I didn't do that. And largely it's because I didn't manage my time and I didn't manage my budget correctly. But if I did, I'd be living in a world with that compound interest just, compounding upon itself. And it's not that. It's just jiu-jitsu, right? How long have we talked about that? I'm still a fucking 4-stripe white belt or whatever the hell I am, right?
But if you weren't, we wouldn't have this podcast name.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, man, managing time. Managing time
important. It's earlier this year, I actually one of the bigger changes in my life, I took this. It was a 6-week online meditation course.
Okay.
But it wasn't just meditation.
4 easy payments of $99.99.
No, it was one lump. It was like $350. I got like the early bird deal on it.
Okay. Well, what was the website?
So this is where we're gonna get a little esoteric here.
Okay.
So I've been most of my life have been fascinated, at least adult life, been fascinated with different stripes of like mysticism and spirituality, like ranging from like Buddhism, Hinduism, to like the more like esoteric, like Aleister Crowley end of things.
We got to talk about Joshua Fabia before this is over. But anyways, you go on.
We can go down that rabbit hole. I don't know who that is, but I'm into it.
You're going to learn today.
So there's this site called magic.me, run by this guy, Jason Louv, who he's been on Duncan Trussell's show a few times.
Oh, God. I love Duncan, though.
Yeah. It sets the tone.
Yep.
But he's very much like his focus is on taking a lot of the fluff out of these systems. Like when you really boil down what like Aleister Crowley and like the Order of the Golden Dawn in England and all these groups were doing, they were combining philosophical systems and putting them into a hierarchical structure that you had to learn. You couldn't learn these techniques until you proved that you could control your willpower and manage your time well. Granted, keep in mind these are all like the elite of England at the time. These are all guys who inherited a lot of wealth. They probably have some kind of royal title, so they don't have a whole lot in their day-to-day to do. But what all this stuff is really designed for is specifically the way that Jason presents it is figuring out your true will. Like figuring out what is the thing that you are here to do, the thing that you are inexplicably drawn to, that your fantasies always take you back to, like cutting out any of the distractions of the modern day and the things that like grab your attention for like a moment and then you lose interest in like 5 minutes later. Like what is the one thing that for one reason or another, like you have to do? And how can you build your life around that? And how can you develop a single pointed focus around that so that checklist that you're talking about becomes everything you need to do to achieve that. So like meditation is a part of that, but the meditation is a means to developing that focus.
Okay.
And kind of like it's a little bit different because when I initially learned meditation was more like the Zen Buddhism style.
Yeah.
Which is more about just emptying your mind, just clearing out any other thoughts. It's just to be an empty vessel.
Yes.
Now there is importance in that technique, but this is a little bit different because while you are trying to cut out all the noise, you're still trying to focus on your true will, on the thing that you're here to achieve.
Yes.
So it's I don't want to get too into it because it was a very, very eye-opening course, very affirming in a lot of things that I already knew to be true, but had kind of like brushed off to the side or wasn't paying a lot of attention to. It's a really great course. It was a live course, so there was I think about 200 or 300 people taking it in this initial run of it.
So were you able to like communicate with them too as the course went along? Like, was there some interaction there? Or
yeah. I mean, it was every night was a live course through Zoom. So we would tune in. He's on the West Coast, so it was like 8:00 at night here.
What's this guy's name?
Jason Louv, Louv.
Okay.
He has a podcast called Ultra Culture, which covers some of the same stuff. You could tell he's kind of been. This is because I've been following him for a few years now. And this class is kind of the culmination of everything he's been doing. Like, this is where he really like he's always dedicated himself to kind of cutting the bullshit out, but this is where he was really like, okay, like it all this other shit like tarot cards and I Ching, like it's interesting stuff and it can be useful, like if you think of it as like a Rorschach test for your own mind.
Yeah.
But it's a distraction. Like you can use it, but you don't need it. Like the meditation stuff, developing your true will, focusing on that, a lot of it was dream journaling, getting in the habit of that and figuring out what your subconscious is telling you over a long period of time. Like writing whatever your dreams were first thing in the morning, every morning, paying attention to that. Like try not to project anything on it right away, like just take it as it comes, but then go back to it. Figure out, okay, this was what was going on in my life at the time. I had this dream. It must have been talking about this thing that I wound up doing a couple weeks later. Yeah, it's a lot of varied stuff there, but so highly recommended.
I have two observations after hearing you say that. First of all, that seems pretty cool. I'll have to look into it. Did you say Love?
Louv.
Okay, got you. I thought you said Love, and I was like, oh, that motherfucker's Jason Love, and he's just saying Louvre.
No. It's Louvre, like the museum, but without the E at the end.
Got you. So, number one, you have to go home immediately and type in Joshua Fabia.
Okay.
I need you to do some research because I'll be honest with you, I haven't done. I've been following the situation that involves this man. But I haven't actually like gone to his website and done research on him specifically. So I would like for you to do that.
Okay.
That is your homework assignment. And the background on this man, Diego Sanchez of UFC fame.
Yes.
Recently left Jackson Winklejohn's camp,
of
which he was, I think, like one of the founding fighters. I mean, he's been there forever. And hired this guy to be his coach. He has no other coaches, just this guy. He has no fight training at all. And he describes himself as a mysticist or like man of magic. And apparently he's a really good fucking salesperson because this other guy, do you know who Emil Meek is? He's the Viking guy who knocked out Paul Harris and then fought in the UFC a few times. He literally looks like a fucking Viking. But anyways, apparently somehow he started training with this guy too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he's friends with Diego. I don't know how that connection was made, but somehow it was. And they went to the UFC Performance Institute together to train with this guy. And apparently he said, what we're going to do today, he got them in the ring, he pulled out a knife and started chasing after them and, like, swiping at them. And they were just running away from this man with a fucking knife.
What the fuck?
So, I think that you and I have the same very deep affection for fake martial arts.
Yes.
So I think this will be a wonderful rabbit hole for you to go down.
Oh my God.
The next time we record something.
He made it to the UFC tier.
Yep. He
That's
literally
amazing.
This is like Ito. This is so much worse than Ito Portal because at least Connor had his normal fight coaches.
Yeah, like Portal, like he at least was not like, hey, you should still learn how to fight.
Yeah. Like he was just about like free flowing movement. And honestly, I think Connor had bought into his philosophy so much that it actually was having a tangible effect. Like I think it actually was helping him because he was such a believer, right? Like the placebo was a motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's check this out. It's also too the controversy because Diego's most recent fight, he's been on a horrible losing streak, and frankly, just hasn't been looking very good because he's not getting trained. And the last fight, I wasn't watching it. It was in like fucking Rio Rancho or something. I was like, come on, UFC. That's a place you would have went back in like 2003. Can we not go to Rio Rancho? No offense, Rio Rancho. But where even is that, by the way?
It sounds made up.
It sounds like it's either in New Mexico or Texas.
It sounds like a town you would go to in like Red Dead Redemption.
Yes.
Like it doesn't sound like a real place.
So, anyways, apparently there was some sort of strike that Diego got hit with, and the ref asked him, he gave him his couple minutes off or whatever, and he was like, "Do you want to continue?" And he kind of goes like, yeah. He goes, "Wait a minute. If I say no, do I win?" And he's like, "Yeah, he'd be disqualified. You'd win." He goes, "All right, yeah, I don't want to continue then."
Oh, dirty.
So there's
dirty motherfucker.
And there's a couple of things there. Like, of all people to criticize for being chicken, Diego Sanchez ain't that guy.
Yeah.
Like he probably on the list.
He used to have. Or no. I'm mixing up. Never mind.
On the list of all-time warriors, Diego Sanchez is on that fucking short list. I mean, he's got to be top 3. So, number one, I mean, a lot of people have been criticizing for that, but I mean, to some degree, I think you fucking earn the right to have an easy night at work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of us cut corners in our own jobs too.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those
exploiting the game is what it's all about.
Yeah, but it also just added to the overall, sort of controversy surrounding him and his crazy fucking coach.
Yeah.
And his coach actually said something like in an interview, he's like, they were like, "Well, what do you tell him in the corner?" He's like, "Oh, I just inspire him and motivate him." He's like, "Do you say anything like fight-wise, like advice?" He goes, "Nah, I don't really know anything about that."
He's got it. He's got it.
So that's your homework.
I'll let Jason Fabia.
No. What the fuck is his first name? God, it's not Jason.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of my Jason.
Joshua Fabia. Yeah. Fabia. And he apparently has a website, which I would love for you to check out and report back on. But if you want a general background, he did an interview with Luke Thomas that you should listen to, because I think you've started to listen to Luke Thomas a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah, here and there.
He's a smart motherfucker.
Yeah.
And he's going to be at Rogan soon, by the way.
Nice.
But he's a really intelligent dude, and Joshua Fabia was just throwing some fucking bullshit his way, and it was a good listen. So that's your homework.
Yeah.
The second thing,
there are those guys out there.
The second thing is journaling. So that's actually something I've been doing a lot of. It was urged to me by my therapist to do it. I don't know if I said that correct grammatically, but fuck it, we're doing it live. And man, it has been incredibly eye-opening. So like one of our I almost said rituals. Is it one of our rituals? But
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. What we usually begin the session, because I've kind of gone to therapy long enough now that there's no more fires to put out on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Like I don't go in there like, "Oh my God, I got to talk about this thing. I'm going to fucking explode if I don't get this out."
Yeah.
That stuff has
is
been
me from the ages of 19 to 22.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a while. I mean, I've been going close to a year, and maybe not a year, maybe 6 months. I don't know. I suck at time. When me that and overwhelm. It's overwhelming. That's why I suck at it. But anyways, I've been going for a while now, to the point where the emergency fires have been put out, and now we're kind of at the point where like, all right, I like doing this. I feel like it works, but we need to be organized here. We need to know what there is to discuss. And one of the things that she recommended that I start doing was writing in a journal every morning, doing like morning pages. And I'll tell you, man, every time I read that fucking journal entry, I remember something that I had forgot, that if I had remembered it, it would have saved me a lot of stress in my life. It's so for example, recently I fucked my back up for about the 18th time, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to retire from barbells, which is something we can discuss after this. But
blasphemy.
It was really interesting. So I went in. I hurt my back on a Thursday. My therapy session was on a Tuesday, and when I went in there, I started reading the entry. And it was funny because before we even read the entry, she was like, "How's your week?" And I was like, "Well, weekend is kind of fucked up because I hurt my back and I couldn't really move around. And I'll be honest with you, when you hurt your back, for those out there who have really injured a disc in their back and have had those recurring injuries, it is depressing. I mean, it's one of those things, you open up your eyes in the morning and you're like, every movement I make today is going to be greeted with pain. Everything. When I move my finger, my back hurts. Like there is no comfortable position. There is no comfort on earth today for you. Like that's the feeling. Like sleeping. No sleep. Come on. That involves laying down. That's one of the things that hurts. The only thing you can do is like sometimes you'll get into like a fetal position where you can like pack
Literal fetal position.
Yeah, and like you can pack in enough pillows that like your spine is supported. It's miserable. Also, too, sitting in that recliner seems to do it for me. So on the Thursday night I hurt myself, I slept in that fucking recliner. But luckily, a lot of pain is this idea of catastrophization, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have hurt myself. I am broken. I'm fucked up. I'm never going to get better. All these things we start to tell ourselves. Well, unfortunately, I've hurt myself enough that I don't really catastrophize anymore because I know through experience, I'll be better in 5 days.
Yeah.
So I think my pain experience has actually gotten better. Also, too, I know to keep moving. And truly the worst thing you can do for a back injury is just stop moving. You just you are going to look like you are mid shit for a few days because of the pelvis position you're going to have to get into.
Yeah.
But it is just the best thing you can do to stay mobile.
Were you doing any martial arts stuff at the time, or did you take off of that?
No, I was doing a little bit of everything, but I was following a program that I thought that is intelligently designed. But we can get into that a little bit afterwards because
after the injury, like, did you take off of that?
Yeah, I didn't really. I just kind of went into the gym and did some bodybuilding stuff. Like I just went in and did some machines, but I worked out that Saturday and Sunday. So I hurt my back on Thursday, worked out both Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But I just went in and did some like fluff and puff stuff, which is basically what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was reading this journal entry, and I had read the journal. This was the following Tuesday, so I was starting to feel a little bit better. I was starting to move around pretty normally again. And I wasn't in the throes of like injury, miserableness. Because I have a respect for the word depression, so I don't want to say that. But just like misery. I wasn't in misery anymore. So I'm reading this entry, and the first thing I write is, I feel fine today, but I can't help but think that I keep seeking low-energy activities. I was like, I feel like I'm feeling the after effects from yesterday being one of those go, go, go days where my calendar is filled up with things, and I got to bike to this end of the city, and then I got to immediately bike to the other end of the city, and I just didn't treat my body with respect.
Yeah.
Like, I was just kind of like, okay, this is a crazy, inhumane day that I'm asking my body to handle, but fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that entry was written Thursday morning. I hurt my back Thursday night. I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, it was literally like brewing.
Yeah.
It was.
And man, it's just, and so many other times that I've gone through, and my journal is currently being used to prop up one of our cameras, so I can't read it right now. But another, through making consistent entries, one of the things actually was about expression and about how I feel like there's these two different versions of myself. And you know me pretty well after these years, so you can probably agree with this. But there's capitalist Corey, and he fucking exists, man.
Oh,
like
I know.
that dude exists. But what I've often found over these past few years is that there's a creative Corey, and it's been really tricky because, it comes back to those age-old discussion of like, hey, it's great to do all these, it's great to do comedy, it's great to do a podcast, but you got to pay the fucking bills, right? And also one of the things, it's like, it's so easy to express yourself nowadays. And one of the sort of obstacles I've encountered getting into real estate is that social media is huge, because real estate is usually like, it is what you do. Like, it's just name recognition to some degree.
Yeah.
Like, we live in Philly where there's a guy named Mike McCann, the real estate man. He's fucking everywhere, right? And that's a big part of business. Like, just like name recognition. I want to sell my house. Who the fuck do I call? Oh, I'll call Mike McCann, the real estate man.
Yeah.
Boom, he'll sell my house. Like, he's won the mind share. and getting yourself out on social media. And also, too, most of your business as a real estate agent comes from people that you know. So I have never gone on Facebook and put a Facebook post out and said, hey, all Facebook friends, I'm a real estate agent. You guys should work with me. If you want to buy or sell a house, I'm your guy. Because those are people who presumably, is that the word right? Is that the right word to say?
Yeah, that works.
Presumably already know you, like you, trust you. So why would they do business with anyone else but you?
There you go.
Right? But I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And part of the reason is I don't want someone to go to my social media and think real estate. I was listening to an inspirational speech by this guy, not inspirational, but I don't know. He's a fucking talk, like a TED Talk kind of situation, by this guy named Gary Keller, who founded the real estate company the brokerage that I hung my license with is called Keller Williams. He's Gary Keller. He founded the company. And he's also the guy who wrote that book, The One Thing, by the way.
Ah,
he's kind of like
okay.
wears a lot of different hats. He's like a real estate guy, and he's an author. But anyways.
Yeah. And that, on a sidebar with that is an example of a well-tuned Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. True that. He's what is it? He's multi-classing. Yeah. So he's giving a speech about like what a young real estate agent should do and giving advice and all this kind of stuff. And he gets to the point where he talks about, what made me successful in this business? He goes, because at the end of the day, I was comfortable with on my gravestone, they can write realtor. And I was like, bleh. No. God. Fuck that. Like I would be depressed. I'd be dead. So I don't know if I can be depressed. We'll see if the Christians are right on that one. But well, if they're right, I'm fucked anyways. I'm going down, not up. Probably.
There are lots of hells out there, Corey.
But well, I'll see you there. we'll do White Belts in Life live from hell.
I like the sound.
That would be great. That would be a great thing.
It's the same setup, but there's flames everywhere. Just like
I would love
a lake of fire behind us.
But yeah, man, it's I'm thinking about hell now. I lost my train of thought.
But yeah, you don't want realtor on your gravestone.
Oh, okay. So I'm talking about this with my therapist, and she's like, "All right, well, what's the next logical question here?" And I was like, "I don't know, what is it?" She's like, "What is? What's written on the gravestone? If it's not realtor, which I get it, that'd be a weird thing to write on your gravestone. What is it? Right? Or even like, Dave Tate from Elite FTS has a really good, how everyone always talks about when you die, you want to live your life almost like planning for your funeral.
Yeah.
Like who's there? Like, are they sad? All these questions you can ask yourself. And like Dave Tate has a really good opinion about when you go to a funeral or like a viewing, there's the people up front who are devastated. They've lost someone who is a part of their inherent essence. Like, they don't even know if they can continue on yet without this person. They're devastated. Then there's the people who are there, to support those people. Like, they're just there, the wives of the daughters, or excuse me. Well, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. But the wives of the husbands or whose dad died or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the people in the back who are just like, when can I go to dinner? Like, when is this over?
Have I paid my respects enough?
Yeah, and, I think the way you should live your life, his whole thing is you got to live your life for the people who are at the front.
Yeah.
Like, but here's my thing. I have a small family. So, like, I don't think there are a lot of people up front, but, like, I think the way I prefer to think about it is I want more people up front.
Okay.
That's a life well lived, right?
Yeah, that's a good barometer there.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want my funeral to be crowded with a bunch of people who are in the back. Like, I want that to be crowded with people who are at the front.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the gravestone thing, I think the one thing that I can isolate is communication.
Yeah.
Like, nothing feels better than communicating well to me. And also, too, like, I really like to be inspired oftentimes by the spoken word. So if I could find a way that, like, by trying to manufacture my own sense of inspiration by listening to the spoken word and developing the spoken word, I don't know, maybe that can be passed along to other people. But, I'd say communicator is probably the thing I'd want on. No, actually, excuse me. I want influencer to be on my.
There you go.
No, that would elicit a stronger gag reflex than realtor. I'd rather realtor.
Yeah. Well, there was something that Jason talked about over the course that I was taking. It was about how he's not like you can't save people. You know, like you can't live your life trying. Like, yes, all of these things that we were learning with meditation and self-development and all that stuff is good stuff, and it can make your life better. But you can't make people go to that.
No.
You know, like you can't. They're either going to be drawn to it one way or another, or they're not. Like they're. It's why you see like people who like hit the lottery and then don't know what to do with themselves because they weren't prepared for that amount of money in their life. And he was talking about like what he does is much more along the lines of like a lifeguard. Like you're just kind of like people already are winding up here.
Yeah.
And I'm just making sure they don't drown. Like I'm just trying to keep them, you know, make sure that they've got their bearings and keep them from going down and following a guy like Joshua Fabia.
That's a brutal life lesson, though, isn't it? To learn that you really can't save somebody.
Yeah.
Because
it's a tough one.
Part of the myth in the narrative that we're fed growing up is quite the opposite, right? Like all of our heroes are people who save people.
Yeah.
And when you grow up, you inherently you're following those narrative lines as sort of a checklist to live your own life.
Yeah.
And that shit's fiction, man, because you can't, not only can you not save certain people, but by doing so, you will lose yourself.
Yeah.
And that is a brutal lesson to learn.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of the spirit out of you when you learn it too, right? Like you want to live in a world where people can be saved, right? That seems like a better world.
Yeah.
That seems like the way it should be. You want to think that there's some degree of sacrifice or some degree of heroism that can save anyone, but there's not. There just isn't. There's a certain.
It's also important, like as we're talking about this, to not get too caught up on the nihilistic side of that, where like you know everyone is doomed and you can only look out for it. Like you can also be there. That's not to say you can't help people, but they have to want it. Like they have to come seeking that. They can't, like you're not going to when you first become a trainer, they always talk about internal motivation versus external motivation. Internal motivation, like there's all different like mindset techniques and like neuro-linguistic programming type stuff where you can like change the mindset of the individual, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to change, they're not gonna.
You know, I think of it a different way too. I think it could be, it's not that this person cannot be saved, but it's that your continued actions won't necessarily save them.
Yes.
Sometimes the best action you can take to try and continue your quest of saving somebody is to not give a fuck.
Yeah.
And to remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
So you always have to, and that's another lesson too that kind of comes packaged with this one, is that you got to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
Because you won't be saving anyone. In fact, you will destroy others if you destroy yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have an obligation to other people to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird. It sounds like you got to prioritize yourself, and that certainly sounds selfish. But I think that there's a certain line where if by not taking care of yourself you're being selfish.
Yeah.
Because you are now burdening other people. It's like a desperation thing, right? It ties into, since we last recorded, I've given up any online dating apps. I have deleted them from my phone forever, and
probably for the better.
And it's just not a good fit for the things that I struggle with, like being overwhelmed and impatience. But Mike Rowe of all people has a beautiful quote. He has a couple of really nice. First of all, he's a smart motherfucker. If you ever want like a good listen, he is articulate as fuck. He's got a great voice too, so he's very nice to listen to. But I was listening to a podcast with him and the guy from Shark Tank. Don't fucking ask me how I got down that rabbit hole.
I'm assuming Mark Cuban, right?
No, the fucking bald guy. Mr. Wonderful.
I don't remember. I don't know his real name.
I think it's Kevin O'Leary.
Okay, gotcha.
He
It's an
actually,
interesting combination.
he's off the show. He's actually a very nice guy. He definitely is just playing the Simon Cowell character, right?
Yeah,
like he's just,
I mean they all are.
on every show you have to have the miserable shit judge, and he's
Yeah.
going to be that guy on that show. But
Yeah.
they were talking, and there's two things that Mike Rowe said that really stuck out to me. The first one was actually, relevant to the previous conversation. The first one was about desperation, where he talked about, he goes, time and time again, whether it's work, whether it's relationships, whether it is, anything, nothing stinks like desperation.
Yeah.
Like in many ways, that's almost that person who's not taking care of themselves, right? Like it's you get to a point where you become desperate and then you burden other people. That's the definite. That's why desperation is so unappealing to others, because you are in need of so much that you are now burdening other people. Like you can't fulfill your own necessities.
Yeah.
Which has gotten you to the point where you are now desperate.
Yeah.
And you are relying upon these other people to fulfill you.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
And I think there's a certain degree of that you do see in a lot of and I think there's not enough distinction made in the world of sales. Is of some of it does, like if you're reading it from a certain perspective, certainly the perspective of the prospective buyer.
Yes.
That you're desperate to make this sale, and it makes me not want to buy anything from you.
Yeah, you should.
Yes, you should sound informative and you sound well versed in the topic and enthusiastic about the topic, but you also shouldn't be like, you're not leaving this room until we make a deal. Like that sounds like a psychopath.
Here's another thing too. I have now been in two sales industries. I've been in fitness sales and I've been in real estate sales. And you know what? Sales is bullshit. Sales, there's this idea. There's this idea that like a good salesperson can make someone who doesn't want to do something.
Yeah.
I don't think that exists.
No, that's not there. There is no mind control.
And if that does exist, which I'm sure, you know what, I'll concede, it probably does. It maybe happens 5 to some irrelevant percentage of the time, right? Like maybe 5% of a really fucking good salesperson can get 5% of the people who don't want to do something to do something.
Yeah.
And that would be like an elite statistic.
Yeah.
And I think really what a salesperson does is that they're organized, they're willing to meet new people, and they take people who really want something, give them a good experience, and then give them that product. That's it.
Yeah.
Like you are basic. Your job is to find the people. As a salesperson, your job is people who really. This is hard to say. I'm fucking up my words here. Your job is to find the people who legitimately want to do business with you and give them a good experience.
Yes.
It is not to take this fucking guy who has no interest in ever signing up for your product and take 45 minutes out of your day to hard sell him.
Yes.
That is a waste. You want to talk about time management and like what tasks within your day are actually leading to you making money? That is a low income use of time.
Yeah.
Like you it's like, if you're trying to sell personal training and you're giving a 45-minute hard sale pitch to a college student, you're the dummy.
Yeah. Yeah, he has no fucking money.
He can't afford your product. He is a unqualified lead. It's like showing somebody, in real estate, when you work with buyers, you have to have proof of funds and you have to have a pre-approval letter for a mortgage, which basically means because as a real estate agent, you could call me up and say, hey, I'm Rick. I want to check out this $1.2 million house. Can you show me? Yeah, sure. I'm desperate for a sale. I'll show you. I'm wasting my fucking time. You can't. I'm sorry, Rick. I'm going to assume you can't afford a $1.2 million house at this point in your life.
I'm going to assure you're safe in that assumption.
Okay. But I don't know that, right? I don't know. You could be a fucking gazillionaire for all I know.
Yeah.
You have just looking at you could be wealthy. You could be not wealthy. I don't fucking know. It could be anything. And that's why you have that step. But that is the same, that seems ridiculous, right? Like if someone wanted to buy a $1.2 million house, you're probably going to ask them for a bit of proof. Whereas all of a sudden, in the world of training or maybe these smaller dollar amount sales, we think of it as ridiculous. You have to hard sell everybody. It's a waste of your fucking time.
Yeah.
I have sold more personal training than probably 99% of planet Earth, or people that have even. I've done this long enough where I've probably sold more of it than people who have even been in the business. I might be in the top fucking 5% of people to actually sell the amount of product. And you don't fucking hard close everybody. You don't. Maybe if you're really, really fucking good, 5 to 10% of people who weren't interested coming in will buy from you. But that's elite. That's like the best people are doing 5 to 10% of people who don't actually want it and converting those. Most of the time, it's 0 out of 100. Most of the time, you just have to do a lot of outreach, find the people who legitimately want the product, and give them a good experience. That's it.
Yeah.
The second thing, the Mike Rowe thing. You know how we start talking about sales from desperation.
Oh, yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah. The stink of desperation and how it comes through.
He was talking, and maybe this is a part of that, like, about 20 minutes or so ago, we were talking about my journal and, like, struggling to express and talking about how I didn't want to put myself on social media because I didn't want to express myself that way.
Yeah.
One of the weird things is I think a lot of the things that I'm interested in involve some degree of fame.
Yeah.
Which is
weird,
right?
That's a
like,
big part of it. Fame maybe isn't the best word for it.
Notoriety?
Yeah, like
audience.
Name and brand recognition.
Audience.
Yeah.
It involves gaining an audience.
Yeah.
And, podcasting especially, I mean, it's all about your audience and getting it as large as it possibly can be. But Mike Rowe had this quote about fame where he goes, I think society went off the rails a bit when fame became a goal rather than a symptom.
Yeah.
Most healthy societies have fame as a part of them, but the people who have that fame have it as a symptom of their achievement.
Yes.
Not simply because they want to be famous. And we have a lot of people who, I could say that hopefully this is an indication of, like, healthy mindset towards all this stuff, but, like, I have absolutely no interest in notoriety for notoriety's sake.
No, God, no.
In fact, that is unappealing to me.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Rogan even had he had a little soliloquy that he went on recently about how, like, he thinks, I think it was him, he's kind of finally crossed the threshold of being a little bit too famous.
Yeah, I bet. Because he's never been the kind of, like, the celebrity type.
Oh, he's got to be an A-lister at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is, but what I'm saying is he's never carried himself that way. He's never conducted himself in a manner of, like,
No, he's in fucking float tanks and wearing, like, Gracie Academy shirts with full sleeves.
Yeah.
But I think that in a weird way, that's kind of, like, that was beautiful to me to think about. Like, it made me feel less guilty about being interested in the things I'm interested in, because I would want I think that's what I would yearn for, is notoriety due to what I've done. Yeah. In a weird way, like, that is the goal. Like, you can put that on my gravestone, right? Like, this guy was known because of what he did, not simply because he was known.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what is that? I said probably communicating in some way, shape, or form, but, like, that in many ways was a very satisfying thing to hear, because I think that, that's one of the things holding me back from, say, sharing myself on social media, because a lot of it's just like, what do I just want? Clicks? I want fucking views. Like, I don't want to play that game.
But we do.
Yes, as it relates to this,
views and listens,
as it relates to this, it does. But I'm talking about
comments and subscribers and all of that stuff.
Well, that's another thing, though. Like, if I were more active on social media, I could have made a post to all of the people who I'm already friends with, saying, "Hey, everybody, here's the thing I'm doing. Check it out."
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. Number one, I don't have the means. I only have Facebook, which is I have like 200 friends. Actually, no, I think I have a lot of friends. I don't know. I truly have no idea. I want to say maybe I have like 500 friends.
That's okay.
Is that like a normal? I feel like that's a fairly normal amount.
Yeah, usually that's the standard.
Yeah, I would like to have less. I would like to purge that list.
I want less friends.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know. It's
counterintuitive to filling up that front row there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Actually, that is a fucking great point by you.
I think that's maybe as part of your struggle on that front, is that you, like, talking about fame being a symptom rather than being a goal versus a symptom, is that you don't want it as the goal to the point of you're also afraid of the symptom to some extent.
Okay.
You know
Say that one more time. I'm too dumb to get that the first time around.
So you're like fame as a goal versus fame as a symptom.
Yes.
Is that you're so opposed to fame as a goal and having that be the end all be all.
Yeah.
That you're also opposed to it as because it's a burden. It is a burden that people don't acknowledge, or people who seek fame don't realize until they have it.
Yeah, I was actually listening to the H3 podcast. You ever listen to them?
Yeah.
They're a good fucking model for us, by the way, because I don't think what did they do? Other than
he made a few YouTube videos that the main guy, I forget what his name is. He did this. It was like a sketch where he was like a professional like vape cloud artist or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's actually a comic in Philly named John Del Calo who looks a lot like that guy.
Okay.
To the point where people thought he was the one in that video.
Huh.
And there was actually, they had a little bit of back and forth online.
That's funny.
Over it.
Does he actually, like, he does, like, truly look like him?
He's got, like, same 5 o'clock shadow, kind of chubby, all that, like, to the point. Because he had a web series that came out at the same time called Golden Thrones. Okay. Where he was, like, reviewing public restrooms at fancy places.
Okay, that's actually pretty fucking hilarious.
And people thought they were people thought they were each other because of those two series, because they came out like within the same month.
Well, him and his wife were talking about how they've kind of crossed that threshold now of being a little bit too famous.
Yeah.
Where they had to hire a security guy.
Ooh.
Like, not because anything bad happened, but just because when you're around that volume of people, and also too, like, some of the DMs you get.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, I'm going to go to the airport, but I can be noticed there now.
Yeah.
And he was just like, man, he goes, I really, like, you could tell in his voice, like, that fucked him up. He's like, I have to have a fucking guy follow. Like, that sucks. He's like, when do I not have to do that? Like, is that something I have to do for the rest of my life now? Is that just a part of the gig?
Probably.
That sucks. Also,
yeah, there's a certain like, you can't, once you cross a certain threshold, there's no going back.
Yeah.
Like you can't just, like, people want to talk about like the evil that Jeff Bezos has done in the world, and like there's some shady shit, particularly with Amazon, just as a company that's definitely like, I don't think that's good. But he can't just stop being Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, he's too far gone.
Like, we can't, like, imagine if Amazon just stopped.
Yeah.
Like, how fucked would a lot of the world, what happens to everybody who works at Whole Foods? What happens to everybody that, it's a catch-22.
Especially when you get to something, like, when you create something that is now so much bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Like, he really has no, like, if he wanted to shut down Amazon tomorrow, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, that is so far beyond him.
But
he's fucking jacked now.
What?
Yeah, have you seen him?
No.
Dude, that is proof that money really can do anything you'd like, because he got divorced
hilarious.
And then immediately got jacked.
I need to see this Vin Diesel looking version.
Do it right now. I want to get your live reaction. Get your phone out.
Oh my god.
And look up Jeff Bezos jacked. And I'll fill airtime while you do so.
Okay. Hold on.
We got to clear out some apps here. Is that Pornhub?
No,
okay.
Not yet. That's for later.
Fair enough. Jeff Bezos jacked. Am I right?
Hold on, let me get a close up here. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. Seeing some veinage in those arms there.
There's better photos than that, though.
Got some vascularity here. Oh, what? Oh no, that's not. That's somebody
The Rock.
We should actually make that like the cover photo for the episode.
Yeah, we should.
It's a picture. So it's Jeff Bezos in like a black vest and t-shirt with, like, he's like filling out the sleeves, and then behind him are like pictures of The Rock and Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious.
Yep.
And he fits in. He actually does fit into this.
He doesn't look ridiculous.
That's another one with like a walking away from an explosion. It really is. It looks like he posed for that. Like, it looks, even the original picture looks like he's posing for this.
Yeah, that's the richest motherfucker in the world, man. Like, just wearing a vest, all jacked. Man. You know what's funny, though? Like, his day is probably so much less interesting than we would all guess. It's like Elon Musk when he was on Rogan. Like, he was just like, what do you do? Like, what do you spend your time on? And he's just like, honestly, I'm just an engineer. He's like, I just do a lot of engineering work. because that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
At a certain point, you're just there to like approve things and give a speech every once in a while.
yeah. Well, I want to keep going, but I think I'm of the opinion that less is more.
Yeah.
Because that way we have more things. Last time we recorded pretty consistently, I felt like there is a point in which we kind of run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we have a backlog, and then we cover the backlog, and then
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a retread.
Yeah. So I don't want to run into that. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking maybe to go against my natural instinct and park this puppy a little bit early.
No.
What do you think about that?
Sounds like a plan. We have a whole bunch of stuff we didn't even get to yet.
Oh my God. I mean, it's up to you. I could keep chatting.
Maybe we can make a little two-parter here.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
see what we got.
That's cool.
But
All
this will be part 1, episode 1, season 5.3.
In episode 27? I don't know. One of those. No, there's more than that, I think.
I was gonna say, I feel like we've crossed that mark.
Maybe like 30. I don't know. Whatever the fuck episode it is.
We'll see.
But all right. Any last words? We usually do last words.
Stay tuned.
Ooh, good collection of words there. I don't have any final words other than Godspeed.